Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Blog Her co-founder, Jory Desjardins.
Hi, everyone. How was day one? I've had a really good day, and this is the near close of our very good day, one that I think it's safe to say that Lisa and Elisa and I feel is probably the most important event at Blog Her and really speaks to why we do this, the Voices of the Year keynote. Yeah. As one of the readers of the many posts who couldn't stop crying, laughing, getting excited, this is a real special moment, and I can't tell you how special it probably is for 15 women backstage right now. And it's made all the more special because we have someone to share and to MC our special event. So before I introduce Queen Latifah, I thought it would be a nice idea to showcase her new talk show, which will be premiering in September. So without further ado, let's cue that up.
An Oscar-nominated and Emmy Award-winning actress, a Grammy-winning and platinum-selling recording artist, a global entertainment icon.
The most fun human on the planet, Queen Latifah.
It's like we're in heaven.
In 2013, Queen Latifah brings her electrifying star power to television.
Bring out the champagne!
Sony Pictures Television proudly presents Daytime's next franchise, The Queen Latifah Show.
Cameron Diaz. The show is really all about inspiration. It's about everyday women.
You're the person that everybody wants to hear that from.
I wonder if Alicia Keys will come in here and play this piano for me. Me and my friend Alicia wanted to leave you guys with something really, really special. Welcome to your new room.
My husband had been killed in Baghdad, Iraq.
You know, what did you do?
I wanted to create a place where these women could do things that maybe they wouldn't have done before.
We're gonna have some thrill today. Wheels up, baby.
Thank you for allowing us to do something like this.
Oh,
I felt my husband the whole time.
Produced by Overbrook Entertainment.
This is going to be absolute perfection for her.
Latifah wants the opportunity to be able to touch people in a way that's inspirational.
And Flavor Unit Entertainment.
This is where I see my life for the next 10 years plus.
Most anticipated television debut of 2013, The Queen Latifah Show.
What's up? Hey, ladies! Hi, everybody. How y'all doing? Blogger, 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 blogger. How are you? Wow, there's a lot of smart, very intelligent phones out there. These are very, very intelligent women with intelligent phones to match. Brilliant phones. Genius phones. Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you to everyone for such a warm welcome. You make me feel like a champion. Truly, I'm thrilled to be here with you in the Chi. Did y'all have a good day? This is awesome. I had a great, delicious deep dish pizza over at the Lou Malnati's. I'm not shy to a fork. But tonight, I'm here for your delicious writing. I'm excited to share this amazing evening with all you amazing women who share your work with us. Now, all right now, I'm gonna get my close-up. All right, girl. Now, as many of you know, I've been working real hard to get ready to launch my new show this fall, and when I saw your categories for the Voices of the Year, humor and heart, op-ed and inspiration, press the button. It spoke to everything I envisioned for the Queen Latifah show. You know, they give me this little button to move my little cue cards along. To entertain, to inspire, and to spark meaningful conversation. Just so happens our first category is humor. Y'all ready for tonight? To host the Humor Voices of the Year, please welcome Sherry Simpson from Dusty Earth Mother, our Humor Voice of the Year 2012. Come on, y'all, give it up.
Queen Latifah just said my name. Okay, I would like to introduce Phaedra Nally, who writes the blog All Things Phaedra. She once wanted to be an actress or an astronaut, but finds blogging to be a much better and sometimes extremely similar substitute. Phaedra will be reading the top 10 faces of Blog Her.
Why do I have to go first? Last year, as I was preparing to head to New York City for my third Blog Her, I thought it might be fun to put together a little video to maybe alleviate a little blogger anxiety about what to expect, poke a little fun, and exercise my acting chops. So I took my video camera down to the basement and told my husband not to come down no matter what he heard. And this is what resulted. You're going to Blog Her, and maybe you've never been to a blogging conference before, or maybe you've never been to this blog conference, the mecca of all blog conferences. And maybe you're a little bit nervous about the kinds of bloggers you're going to meet and really how they'll be in real life. So I thought I would share with you the top 10 faces I personally have seen, or people that I know have personally seen, is true, just so you know what to expect. Let me start by setting the stage for you. It's New York City, as if that's not intimidating enough, and it is Blog Her, the largest women's blogging conference in the world. But no worries, because I'm going to tell you exactly what to expect. I was a theater minor, you know. Number 1, the blogger who has no clue who you are and pretends like they do. Hey, it's good to see you, Karen. I knew it. I knew that was you. Number 2, the blogger who has no clue who you are and doesn't pretend like they do. Hey, how are you? That's what I thought. Can you excuse me? Number 3, the blogger who's polite, but always looking for someone more important. Karen, it's great to meet you. So what do you blog about? Oh, can you hold on one second? Hey guys, I'm over here! Number 4, the blogger who is just outright rude. I'm sorry, your name is Karen? I don't know you. Number 5, the blogger that doesn't know you until she associates you with Twitter. This might be me. Hey, Kathy, who are you on Twitter? @Kathy? Oh, that's you, I know you. Number 6, the blogger who lacks tact. This also may be me. Hi, Kathy, wow, you look different. Is your hair blonder or just, I don't know, you look different than you do on Twitter. Number 7, the blogger who is scared to say anything to anyone. Hi. Number 8, the blogger who can't commit. Oh, Kathy, we should definitely get together. Oh, you know what? I have a couple parties to go to, so maybe tomorrow's better, but let's not do the morning. Maybe sometime in the afternoon, or, you know what? I'll be around till Sunday, so I'll tweet you. That's what I'll do. And we'll definitely catch up. Number 9, the blogger who drinks too much and becomes your best friend. Oh my God. I love your blog. You are so amazing. You have got to move. You got to be my neighbor. You got to be my next door neighbor. And we would like talk about blogging all the time. And oh my God, we could have pinning parties. It would be awesome. Number 10, the blogger who's actually friendly. Hi, I'm Phaedra. Nice to meet you. See, we're not all that bad. And scene.
J.C. Little is the animated woman, blogging her life with drawings and animation. J.C. will be reading How to Check for Pinworms.
Warning! Yeah, well, if you don't already have kids, you may never want them after this. A couple of years ago, an old friend of mine came to town with his 3-year-old son. He was newly divorced and just wrapping his head around parenting by himself, week on, week off. They stayed with us because we're fairly close, having grown up together. After dinner, all our kids had their baths, and we started to put them to bed.
Daddy, my bum is itchy.
My friend's son was squirming all around and trying to give his little bot a good scratching inside his pajamas. I said to my friend, "Maybe the boy has worms." "No way!" His response was immediate and full of certainty. "I checked, and there's no worms. My kid is clean and perfect in every way." Okay, but the boy was plainly suffering from something. And apparently had been suffering for quite some time. So I put it to my friend that maybe he needed to check again. The little boy stopped his squirming and his daddy checked by merely glancing at his son's bumhole. I'm like, dude, that's not how you check for pinworms. You need to really look. My friend slowly turned towards me. I watched his expression morph from confusion to fear, fear to horror, and horror to intense pleading. Sheesh. All righty, I caved. I'll show you how. But no matter what you see, it's super important not to react with disgust. You must remain calm. He nodded. I went and got a towel, a flashlight, and a magnifying glass. I explained to the little boy that there might be some tiny worms living inside his bum, and that was tickling him when they wiggled around. I asked him to just lie there, all relaxed on the towel, and then push, as if he was going to do a poo. Well, he loved that idea. I trained the flashlight on the little pinky and told him to go for it. Note, this is what you might see if you were a pinworm. The kid was amazing. He pushed until he was red in the face, giggling the whole time. His father and I looked on through the magnifying glass. Come on, push! Just a little more. And there it was, the seething white mass. My friend was looking very pale indeed. But he said nothing. His boy wanted to see one of the worms. So we took one on a tissue to show him. He was fascinated by this tiny white wriggler that had come out of his bumhole. But we told him that those worms didn't belong in his bum and he had to have some medicine to make them leave. So we put the tissue in the loo and let him flush it away. I washed my hands, put the boy back in the bath, and sent my friend to the pharmacy to get medicine for pinworms. Well, he was there and back in no time. But he was walking kind of funny. Smile for Twitter. Thank you.
Zachary Watson is a wife, mother, and retired bartender. She traded in her wine opener for her laptop and now works from home as a producer for Blog Her Publishing Network. She's been Rocky Mountain High for 11 years and tells her story at Raising Colorado. She will be reading DIY is Full of Danger, a cautionary tale.
I've always wanted a decorative wreath for our front porch, but I've never found anything that said, "Buy me." This past December, when we pulled out the Christmas decorations from the garage, I noticed that we had a few of those fake plain green wreaths, and I decided to jazz it up. If there's one thing we have an abundance of in Colorado, it's pine cones. The kids and I went outside and gathered pine cones from the woods around our house. We were crafting off the land. It was pretty much just like Little House on the Prairie, except no one was blind. I had no plan, no directions, just a glue gun and sheer determination to make my vision come to life. I started gluing the pine cones on the inside edge of the wreath, working my way around. I ran out of pine cones quickly. I kept going back out and filled a box up 3 times. I glued, and glued some more. It was like a gigantic pine cone puzzle. You know, if puzzles were sharp, pointy, and gave you splinters and burns all over your fingertips. It turned out lovely and totally free. All the supplies that I used I had lying around the house and in the woods, and free makes my wreath a gigantic win. But as we all know, magic comes with a price. The next day, the back of my right hand developed a weird rash. A few days later, the rash had spread to my face, ears, and neck. I figured it was a reaction to something I had eaten. I called my doctor's office and they told me to swing by. My doctor mentioned the rash did not look like it was brought on by food or drink and proceeded to ask all sorts of questions. He was certain it was some sort of reaction to shampoo, detergent, lotion, or perfume. I've used the same shampoo since high school. I make my own detergent. I don't use lotion, and I've worn the same perfume for at least 5 years. He brought in his doctor coworker friend, and this guy was all, well, I don't think it's shingles, and probably not scarlet fever. If it was lupus, the rash would be more located on your joints. Huh. They told me to go home and take some allergy medication for my hives and call them if anything changed. I was concerned for the well-being of my face, but I felt confident enough to put my hives on blast via Instagram, because everyone finds hives funny and amusing when they aren't happening to you. I should have titled the photo, "Bitch You Don't Even Know," as this was just the beginning. Later that evening, my entire head was bright red and on fire. I stayed up all night with a cold washcloth on my face, consulting Dr. Google, convinced that I was suffering from a rare medical condition and about to receive a cutting-edge diagnosis of being allergic to my husband. After a full night of being miserable and not sleeping, I was inspecting my red, patchy, burning, swollen face in the mirror and noticed there were tiny blisters forming on the rim of my lower eyelid. I called my doctor's office again, freaking out because high no sleep and because Mary went blind on Little House. And they were all, "Please come to the office immediately. We're concerned for your vision." Me too. 20 minutes later, I'm back in the exact same exam room from the day before. My doctor informs me my skin is blistering, and it looks like my lymph nodes are swelling. He inquired if I could have possibly, somehow, been exposed to poison ivy. "Oh, you mean like when maybe I went into the woods and picked up 200 pine cones by hand? And then painstakingly applied those 200 super special free pine cones to a tacky wreath with nothing but my glue gun and a dream?" He informed me that even if the poison ivy jerk face of a plant is dead, it could still infect you for up to a year with its super demon plant powers. So I picked up pine cones lying in a field of dead poison plants, came inside, glued said infected pine cones of death to a wreath, touched my iPhone a whole bunch of times while making the wreath, and then used the said contaminated phone like a boss while working the next day, and gave my entire head the worst case of poison ivy my doctor has ever seen in the history of his practice. I was prescribed steroids to prevent my eyes from swelling shut, and my face looked like it was sunburned to an itchy, infuriating crisp that I absolutely could not scratch, and I had blisters all over my entire head, even in the creases of my ears. Why the best things in life are indeed free, apparently they can also rage and disease your entire face with their poison oils. My free wreath cost me 2 doctor office visits, $16 in drugstore relief, a copay for my prescription, and my dignity. I straight jacked myself up, all in the name of crafting. After my family offered their love and support in the form of laughter, my sister pretty much summed up this entire experience with one sentence: God punishes crafters. God punishes crafters. That's why Martha Stewart went to jail. Thank you.
Give it up for Zachary. That was deep. That was the deepest humor I think I've ever experienced. But I liked it. Does that make me crazy? All right, our next category is op-ed. Wow. Y'all ready? Okay, just making sure you're with me. Now, we ladies have lots of opinions, don't we? Yeah, and blogs speak to millions of women, and these bloggers make us feel the power of their voices. So, to host the Op-Ed Voices of the Year, please welcome Arnavia Herndon from What Now and Why, Op-Ed Voice of the Year 2012.
Hi, y'all. Tin Kim Lamb blogs at I'm Not the Nanny about raising biracial kids in a race-conscious world. She is honest, heartfelt, genuine, and absolutely worth your reading her words. One truth about her, she is a recovering Candy Crusher. It's not gonna last.
I've been asked this question countless times throughout my 34 years of living in the United States. I was born in October 1978. So if you do the math, it means I've been living in the US since I was born. Technically, that makes me an American citizen. I even got a passport and says it. So why do people feel compelled to ask me for my nationality? Why not my cultural background or my ethnicity? Why ask at all? Is it because I'm not Caucasian? Back in my fiery high school and college days, my quick retort would be American. Then I let the person flounder for a few seconds and then add, I was born in Louisiana. Last night, I didn't even have the patience. I was already cranky because of the poor customer service I received at the fast food restaurant we were having dinner at. The bad customer service had nothing to do with my race or ethnicity, just folks who can't think outside the box. It was just my kids and I eating dinner as we waited for my husband to meet us after work. As we ate, a young employee, young is younger than me, walked past our table a few times, giving us curious looks. Finally, she stopped at our table and offered us mints. I told her no thank you and turned my attention back to my kids. She hesitated and walked away. Seconds later, she turned around and dropped the question. What is your nationality? She must have been dying to ask me that for the last 15 minutes. I can't say I was nice to her, but I wasn't mean either. I only gave her my stock answer, American. Now, this young lady is African American. Do you think people ask her what African country or Caribbean island she hails from? I would guess not, unless she spoke with an accent, which she didn't have. Heck, I don't even have an accent unless you count my southern drawl that makes an appearance after a few shots of tequila. Interchanges like this make me angry. I'm sure this person was just curious and meant no harm, but meaning no harm does not mean it won't offend. I'm tired of having to explain that even though I have small almond eyes, light skin, straight black hair, that yes, I really am an American. Being asked for my nationality on the assumption that I'm not American assumes that all Asian Americans are foreigners, resident aliens. That's what we call non-natives, right? Aliens, like we have, 3 eyes and antenna. I'm considered an alien in my birth country, the only country I have ever known. No, I have never gone back to Vietnam. I can't go back if I've never been there. Yes, I only want to go there to eat the food. The Chinese were one of the first Asian American immigrants when they became cheap labor for the Transcontinental Railroad. I'll bet even Chinese Americans who can trace their family that far back are still asked what country they come from. Remember the Japanese internment during World War II? Japanese citizens quietly hustled and transferred like cattle into internment camps because their ancestors were Japanese. No one locked up the Italians during World War II. We are told that we are doing the same thing to the Japanese Americans that the Nazis did to the Jews. Back when I took history class in high school, that ugly part of the United States history did not even receive a mention. I wish I could say that how our society perceives race has evolved since I left my small Louisiana hometown 15 years ago. Actually, it seems we have regressed. Don't believe me? Remember the story about Seema Jelani's racist encounter at the White House correspondent dinner, where she was treated rudely and refused entry because of her dark skin, while lighter-skinned blonde women were ushered in with no problem. How many more years must Asian Americans live in the United States before we're no longer asked for our nationality? How many more generations before we're subconsciously accepted as American citizens? Every time someone asks us for our nationality, it's like a knife in the back. Sure, we can live in our country and become a famous chef like David Chang, a famous architect like Maya Lin, or an Olympic medalist like Michelle Kwan, but we'll never be part of your club. That's how that question makes me feel. I ask that the next time you're curious about a person's ethnicity or cultural background, think about how you word your question. Or maybe you don't ask at all. Maybe you get to know that person and you learn about their deep, dark secrets organically, or with tequila, like we do with all our friends. Thank you.
Melissa Tingley blogs at Home in the World and at Artifactual Blog. She is a writer and instructional designer. And one truth about her is she is a 10-year veteran of her local school board. She is apparently also a saint. The story she's reading was published at the Broadside.
There is something seductive about holding a gun, the way it fits in your hands and gives you the illusion of control. There's power there, very personal power, and I have felt it. If you told me I would ever find myself at a shooting range holding some kind of Glock, I would have done far more than laugh at you. I was vehemently anti-gun, and shooting was not something I could ever imagine. Yet there I was at the insistence of a friend who felt I should know how to defend myself from millennium wackos and other ill-intentioned people that I might encounter in the year 2000. He had recently purchased 2 guns to protect his home and his bank in case the power went out and the ATMs stopped working on New Year's Day. I didn't share his fears, but the idea of knowing how to handle a gun in an emergency appealed to me, and so I took him up on his offer to teach me. The guns came in slick, miniature briefcases like something out of a spy movie. My friend brought his own targets that looked exactly as they do in cop shows. If the plastic eye protection and the giant ear protection spoiled the effect, I could ignore them because the gun felt solid and heavy in my hand, and I was ready. The first shot missed completely. Even with my ears covered, it was so much louder than I expected. The force was so greater than such a small machine should give off, and some adjustment was needed. After the first 2 shots, my aim was better, much better. Ultimately, I hit the target in the head twice. My friend was pleased, proud even, and he reeled the target back for me to admire my handiwork. And I burst into tears. I could never imagine using that kind of force on another living thing, knowing I could end a life. Here I was, standing at a pockmarked paper target, and all I could think of was the person on the other side of that gun who might not ever have another day on this earth. I knew if I ever found myself in this situation, I would spend the rest of my life wanting to take back that moment, no matter what. But now I understand that power. On Friday afternoon, as we discussed the unspeakable massacre at Sandy Hook, I found myself explaining the constitutional origins of our nation's gun culture to a coworker from another country. But our national love affair with guns is not really about history or freedom. It is about the personal appeal of the power of a gun and all the money there is to be made from those who enjoy it. For the next several days or weeks, we will have to endure gun rights supporters maintaining that there is nothing to be done about gun violence except more guns. They will suggest that you can't control for the mentally ill and the presence of evil. They will advocate for things like arming teachers and bringing prayer back into the schools. They will use any tactic to avoid admitting an addiction to that power. Let's be clear. Evil is just an excuse. This is not about taking God out of our schools. It is about taking too much money out of our mental health budgets. It is about letting too many guns out on our streets and into our homes. Mostly, though, it is about a steadfast refusal to address the reason anyone buys a gun in the first place, a willingness to kill and the desire to have the ultimate power over a living being. Our country has confronted other abuses of personal power in the past: slavery, child abuse, sexual molestation, discrimination, rape. In every case, not only have we legislated these issues, we changed the conversation about them. There is much work to be done on many of these issues, but with 20 tiny school children going to their graves this week, it is past time to add civilian gun ownership to that list. Thank you.
Adrienne Jones writes about family life, mental health, and social issues at no points for style. She is candid, thoughtful, and engaging. And one truth about her, she gave birth on her deck. That's outside, y'all. I didn't even make that up. I didn't fall down.
It's all good from here. But I'm not here to tell you about how I can stand up on my hind legs. I'm here to tell you about my daughter. My teenage daughter, Abby, she broke her leg. It was a bad break in her femur. And she was in terrible pain, begging me to help her make it stop. So I took her to the ER, and we waited there all day. And finally, a bone health specialist came and told us we should go home and make an appointment with an orthopedist. I can't take her home like this. I said she can't even walk. Can she at least have some medicine for pain? The bone health specialist was aghast. A doctor can't prescribe medicine without seeing the patient. That would be unethical. I took Abby home and made her as comfortable as I could before I got on the phone. I called every orthopedist whose number I could find. Many of them didn't return my calls, and of those who did, more than half told me they weren't accepting new patients. And the few who were taking new patients made appointments 4 to 6 weeks in the future, or put her on waiting lists that were months long. Wait, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Actually, I took my daughter to the ER for an asthma attack. She was terrified, unable to speak, tears rolling down her face. So I took her in hopes of getting her some relief and making sure she didn't die. So we went there and we waited, and finally a breathing the air specialist came and told us we should go home and make an appointment to see a pulmonologist. I can't take her home like this. I said she can barely breathe. She could die. The breathing the air specialist was aghast. A doctor can't prescribe medicine without seeing the patient. That would be unethical. I took Abby home and made her as comfortable as I could before I got on the phone. Sorry, I got confused again. It was diabetic shock. And after we waited, we saw a blood sugar and insulin specialist who told us to go home and make an appointment with an endocrinologist. Wait, I don't know where my head goes. I did take my daughter to the ER, and we did wait all day. But what was really wrong was suicidal depression. In the weeks leading up to our ER visit, I had already called dozens, more than 50 psychiatrists, and had discovered that I could not get her an appointment in a reasonable amount of time to keep her safe. 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months. We'll add you to the waiting list. And in the meantime, my daughter begged, "Please, Mommy, can't you make it stop? I can't stand it." It's always awful to witness our own children suffering. From the baby's first cold, there are few things in life that feel worse. Part of the way I endured excruciating pain after a surgery that went bad in 2007 was to lay in my hospital bed and chant, "At least it's not one of my kids. At least it's not one of my kids." But when there's treatment for what ails that child and we can't deliver it, there is an anger that could change the path the moon travels in the sky if I could figure out where to point it. I took Abby to Casement Presbyterian Hospital in Albuquerque because it's one of 2 hospitals in the city that has a dedicated psychiatric emergency department. I took her to the ER because, as I had been busy trying to get her an appointment with a psychiatrist, she had gotten more depressed. When left untreated, illnesses more serious than common viruses tend to get worse. Untreated diabetes causes organ damage or death. Untreated asthma causes scarring in the lungs or brain damage or death. Untreated depression causes more acute depression or psychotic depression or death. We waited all day at the ER and finally saw a behavioral health specialist. She interviewed Abby, and then she spoke to me. She's clearly very depressed. I thought I should file that in my drawer labeled, "No shit." She has some suicidal ideas, said the BHS, and she knows what she would do if she decided to end her life. But she hasn't definitely decided to do it. Criteria for admission are an immediate suicide plan or extreme psychosis. You should take her home and make an appointment to see a psychiatrist. Would she see a psychiatrist today? I asked. There are no psychiatrists in the ER, said the BHS. There are no psychiatrists in the psychiatric emergency room. I said, she's feeling too desperate and hopeless. I can't take her home without a prescription or an appointment or something. The BHS looked horrified. She can't have a prescription. No doctor will write a prescription without seeing the patient. That would be unethical. Unethical. Let's talk about ethics. Let's talk about the ethics of insurance companies that reimburse so little for mental health treatment that hospitals have no incentive to keep their psychiatric units open. Thank you. Let's talk about the ethics of a mental health funding system that pays psychiatrists less than most other doctors, so medical students enter other specialties in hopes of paying off their student loans before they retire. Let's talk about the ethics of having a psychiatric emergency room with no psychiatrists in it. When Abby dislocated her knee at school a year and a half ago, an ambulance transported her from there to the ER. At the ER, they put her knee in place, put a brace on her, gave her pain medicine, and we walked out with a follow-up appointment to see an orthopedist for the very next day. There's no equivalent care for a dislocated mind. There's no method to deliver care immediately to a person who is suffering deeply, but has not quite gotten to the point where she seals the garage or swallows the pills or puts the blade to a vital artery. How ethical is it for us as a society to accept a mental health system that meets the needs of such a tiny minority of people that suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death of teens and young adults in the US? In spite of the fact that most people with mental illness can be successfully treated, and 90% of people who complete suicide have a diagnosable mental illness at the time of their deaths. I'm so glad the doctor who didn't treat my daughter that night got to protect his ethics. Now, how about we get busy protecting lives? How about we start treating suffering that originates in the brain the same way we treat suffering that originates in the heart and the liver and the bones? How about we all start treating this like the emergency that it is? Because if we begin at the ethical beginning, at the human beginning, we can only say that there are no disposable people. Not my daughter, not you, not the people who are tying the nooses and gathering the pills and loading the guns right now. To build a system to create a culture in which some people are disposable, that is unethical. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Adrian. That's power. This is beautiful. Thank you so much. Our next category is Heart. The best bloggers speak from the heart. Enough said. So to host the Heart Voices of the Year, please welcome Deb Rocks from Deb on the Rocks. Voice of the Year from the very first in 2008.
Right? I think that's all. Right? I am so honored to introduce the Heart category. Do you know who's next? Casey Carey Brown. Casey blogs at Life with Ruzel, and all she really wants is a world where her daughter grows up knowing that differences are celebrated, questions are encouraged, and life rules. Casey is reading I Was Saved at Jesus Camp.
When I was 13, I got saved at Jesus Camp. I'd gone to the camp because my best friend Rachel told me there were cute boys there. When I got there, I never found the cute boys. In fact, the complications of boys and friends and being 13 are what put me in the perfect position to be discovered by Jackie, the short, curly-haired counselor, ready to show me the emptiness of my life and lead me to Jesus. And Jackie was kind of cute. My parents picked me up on Saturday, and I had read my Bible the whole way home, the Bible that my dad had found for me on the shelf when we read it was a requirement for the camp. It said, "To Ray, on your birthday, from your father." It had never been opened, except to write that little note on a December day in 1986. Now it was highlighted, underlined, and Post-it notes stuck out the side. When I decide to do something, I do it, especially when that something is getting saved. I came home from that camp and spent the next 5 years living my life for Jesus. I learned how to play the guitar. I read the Bible cover to cover a few times each year. I preferred books that had been translated from German. After high school, I joined an evangelical missionary program. I packed my guitar, Bible, and a backpack and left Boston for Nashville. As a missionary, I went to India, Thailand, and Malaysia. We visited orphanages, schools, hospitals, and slums. We told anyone who would listen about Jesus, gave them Bibles, and set them up with churches there. I smuggled Bibles through customs. I encouraged people to leave their families for Christianity, and they did. Eventually, my missionary work was over, and it was time for college. After a short stint at Bible college in the Northeast, I ended up back in Nashville, studying theology. While writing at a local coffee shop between classes, I started meeting people who soon became my friends, people who challenged me in a new way. One of my closest friends was a Pakistani Muslim. He smoked. He was a Democrat and a writer. His name was Masood. Suddenly, I found myself questioning, wondering, and there was one question that was becoming harder to answer, one that I was being asked more frequently, one that I had heard before but never really answered with more than just a simple no, because that was my truth. Was I gay? No, I wasn't. Was I starting to fall apart? Yeah, a little bit. I began wondering if the complication in my life wasn't really complication at all, if it was really just this big, exhaustingly wonderful fight against who I really was, that perhaps it was time for me to just let that go and find myself, whatever that might mean. It was a process, a complicated process. One night I dreamt about my friend Caitlin. We were at a party and I introduced her as my girlfriend. I woke up in a panic. Not a panic to defend myself, but a panicked realization that though Caitlin was not actually my girlfriend, I'm definitely gay. Fuck. Now what? If I accepted who I am, I had to deny who I'd become. There was no way to be gay and born again. It didn't work. It couldn't work. I needed too much of a defense. What would I do? Convince the entire evangelical church that they were wrong? I mean, they are. But who am I to be listened to? And they certainly wouldn't want to hear it from a woman, a gay woman. I had friends, lots of them, Christian friends, from my church, from my missionary group, from my theology major. I was the encourager. I was the first one there on the phone or on their doorstep with music or to lead them in prayer. If I accepted that I am gay, I had to not only walk away from all of that, but I would also have that door slammed in my face. And I was right. I eventually came out in 1999. I was kicked out of my church. I was the youngest member of that church, the first woman to ever preach in the church's history when I was only 17. I was a Sunday school teacher, a Bible study leader, and a leader in the youth group, and they wanted me out. One of the elders told me he wouldn't even share a meal with me until I admitted that I was living in sin. He wouldn't even break bread with me. Here's what I know. I know it's about so much more than just a Chick-fil-A sandwich. It's about who's welcome at the table. Thank you.
I love the woman you're about to hear, Melanie Coffey. Melanie blogs at She's Right, and she is. All she really wants is for her kids to know she tried her very best, and for McDonald's to introduce a Happy Mommy meal featuring a nice Shiraz. She'll be reading Talking About Race with my biracial 5-year-old.
Before I begin, I promised Michael Jackson at the Sheraton I'd give him a shout out, so there you have it. It's interesting being a parent of a biracial child in that, like with most things with motherhood, I'm fumbling around in the dark. One day, while digging through my 5-year-old's backpack, I ran across a worksheet on Martin Luther King Jr. Curious, I asked Logan what he had learned about King in school. He told me that white people used to not let brown people do things, and King made a lot of people mad, a lot of white people mad, because he was helping brown people. Well, kinda. Since my husband is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Norwegian, and I'm a black girl from Kansas, I'm always curious as to how our biracial kids perceive themselves when it comes to race. So the conversation began on this day, as it has many times before. Logan, do you know any brown people? I asked. He rolled his eyes and pointed at the chocolate side of my hand. You. Do you know any white people? He smiled. Daddy. Right. And then I waited. I waited because usually at this point in the conversation, he gives me a glimpse into his curious little mind. Mommy, am I one of the brown people who can't do anything, or the white people who get to do everything? My heart sank a little. All the talks we've had about the importance of content of character, how President Barack Obama had a white parent and a brown parent, the books we've read about King and Rosa Parks, and on kids of every hue and belief, did they not stick? My niece and nephew are also biracial, and they're college students. I admire how their generation doesn't seem to feel the need to check the white box or the brown box. They are who they are, and that's it. I, too, am trying to keep my kid box-free, while also instilling a sense of knowing where he came from. That's why my response to whether he was brown or white was just another question. What do you think? He studied the backside of his hand. I am both. It's like a mix. It's true, he is. His caramel-colored skin and loose and profuse sandy brown curls are a perfect blend of my husband and me. But what if I was on a bus, Mommy? Would I have to sit with the white people or the brown people? I admit, I fumbled for words. He's 5 years old. I want to protect him from the ugliness of racism. But I don't want to lie to him, as there's no stronger weapon against racism and other ignorance than the truth. But really, he's 5. 5. It's not like it's time to have the talk, which for generations has been a rite of passage for many brown boys. Thankfully, my husband came to my rescue. Well then, we just moved to Norway. The conversation then moved elsewhere, but inside I wondered, why had I stalled? I'm a parent who prides herself on her candid and honest relationship with her kids. Why did I fumble to tell my baby that had he been born in another time, he would be back in the bus with his mama? I'm not ashamed of our history, quite opposite, in fact. But there's something about telling your child that he was viewed, could still be viewed, as a second-class citizen. I never want him to feel less than. But I also want him to know his rich history, both the African American and the Norwegian. So later that evening, unsatisfied with how I handled it, I brought up the issue again. Logan, remember when we were talking about brown and white people, and you asked me, would you sit in the front of the bus or the back of the bus? He nodded. You would be in the back of the bus with Mama. His eyes widened. Then my words just spilled out. But that's only because of those old rules. What really matters about a person is what's in his heart and in his mind. The color of their skin doesn't matter. We all just have to be good to each other and know that as long as you put in the hard work, you really can do whatever you want. I mean, look at Barack Obama. He would have been sitting in the back of the bus with you and your mama. His eyes widened again. But now, because of people like Dr. Martin Luther King, those rules have changed. Then, to drive home the point, I used the 6-lettered S word in our home that is considered profane. And besides, those rules, Logan, are really, really stupid.
We are really lucky to hear the next reader, Ellie Shaneberger. Ellie blogs at One Crafty Mother, and she is. As a woman in recovery for both alcoholism and tonsil cancer, all Ellie really treasures is an ordinary day. She's reading Behind the Veil.
I'm sitting on the crinkly paper in an exam room at the Cancer Center, wearing the ever-present polka-dotted cloth Johnny, waiting for what feels like the millionth doctor consultation. I can feel myself slipping into self-pity. I don't want to be here, not at all. I used to drive by this shiny new facility, only about 20 minutes from my house, and avert my eyes. I hope I never have to go there, I'd think. Now, here I am. I feel as though I've slipped into a parallel universe, behind a veil that others don't see, the cancer veil. It's another world behind here, one where the petty concerns of my previous life seem very small indeed. I watch the world rush by on the other side of the veil, a world where people's minds are full of everyday concerns like shopping, meetings, work, errands. I watch them, and I miss belonging there. Now that I've stepped behind the veil, I don't know that I'll ever inhabit that world of industrious obliviousness ever again. The doctor pokes his head in, saying, "Knock, knock," like they all do. He smiles, introduces himself, and does a quick examination. He tells me to get dressed and calls my husband in for a consultation. The doctor is a medical oncologist, the expert on chemotherapy and radiation, and he will tell us what the next 3 months of our lives are going to be like. Keeping a practiced smile on his face, he talks about 7 weeks of daily radiation, 3 doses of chemotherapy interspersed at weeks 1, 4, and 7. You will lose your hair, he says, slipping this tidbit in amongst the medical stuff. and you will need a feeding tube. My stomach drops into my feet. A feeding tube? I knew I might lose my hair, but definitely. Despair rolls over me like a fog. I can see my husband and the doctor chatting there on the other side of the veil, and I'm grateful he's here because I'm speechless, lost. I hear the doctor say they will be putting the feeding tube in before the chemo and radiation even start. A standard procedure, the doctor says, nothing to be concerned about, just a tube that will be inserted directly into your stomach, near your belly button. What he doesn't say is that once my treatment starts, my throat will be too ravaged to eat or drink. I'm sinking lower, fighting back tears. I grope for gratitude, and I can't find it anywhere. I love my hair, I think. I love food. I don't want to do this. But, of course I will, and I won't do it alone. Here behind the veil, there is an army. I sit in waiting rooms and I glance at my fellow soldiers, some with hair, some without, some wearing bandages or looking weak and pale, but all with a look of determination and courage. They are bruised and battered, this army, but they are not broken. They will fight with all they have, and I will too. There are nurses with just the right combination of cheer and realism who possess a compassion and humanity that boggles my mind. They are the generals who lead our army bravely into battle. There are doctors who perform miracles with their hands and their smarts every day. They are the chief executives, the strategists, the ones who refuse to be beaten by this disease. There are survivors. There are, oh, so many survivors who share their stories of fear, pain, hope, and triumph. You do not meet people like these, the patients, nurses, doctors, and survivors, very often on the other side of the veil. Together, we do what none of us can do alone. My husband and I drive home in a stunned silence. My mind is flip-flopping between sadness and fear. I have 3 more scans to endure in the next week, a CT scan, an MRI, and a PET scan to complete the staging process, a fancy way of saying they will tell me if there is cancer anywhere else. I push away the fear and search for things to be grateful for, making a mental list. I live close to world-class care. I have an incredible support system. It appears my cancer is treatable. This helps a little, but I feel the weight of the veil pressing on me, making it hard to breathe. Stop fighting and surrender, I think. What happens is not up to you. I close my eyes and think of the army, of the hope and courage they carry in their hearts, and I let go. Thank you.
That's what I'm talking about. Real heart. Thank you, Ellie. Now, our next category is inspiration. Anybody feel like being inspired? Me too. I feel inspired just being here, just hearing everyone read the. Are you not inspired by what you're hearing around you? And I love it. I think it's fantastic. Inspiration comes in many forms. I've drawn inspiration from my mom, Rita, who was an extraordinary high school teacher. I've also been inspired by the many people who have, who I've met along the way through music, through film, and just people. My limo driver, whose 12-year-old daughter loved singing, but she was a big girl and she was afraid to sing because her classmates were like, "You can't sing, you're too big." And because she saw me sing, she was like, "If Queen Latifah can do it, then I can do it." But she didn't even know that she inspired me. Just hearing him tell that story inspired me because I get down sometimes, I go through my ups and downs in life, and it's great to share those inspirational stories because you never know when you're lifting someone up. So, with no further ado, inspiration! You want some inspiration? The baby needs some inspiration. And you. We'll get some inspiration So to host our Inspiration Voices of the Year, please welcome Mr. Lady from Shenanigans, another Voice of the Year from 2008.
I knew that ridiculous pseudonym would pay off someday. Ann Imig is a stay-at-home humorist and founder of Listen to Your Mother because she never wants a relaxing Mother's Day ever again. People who love what they do inspire her. Christopher Guest makes her laugh. Her boys singing earnestly in the back seat while staring out of the window make her cry. So does geography and trying to read graphs. Her favorite thing in the world is when she is well-rested, well-fed, and well-swaddled. Ann Imig would like you to own your creativity, or at least flying cross-body check it.
If you've dreamed of hearing lucha libre lingo from a Wisconsin Jewess, you're in luck. I'd like to wish you Feliz Dia de Blog Her 13 by sharing my Mexican wrestling rules for owning your creativity. Número uno, become a luchador, a fighter, not a referee. You can't fight while refereeing someone else's match. Envy, jealousy, and spite stem from your resistance to your own work. Picture envy and jealousy as las mini estrellas and give them la guillotina. Leg drop those midget wrestlers. You might need to Facebook stalk for a good while and eat lots and lots of churros, but then return to la lucha, campeón. Go fight, champion. Write something. Take a photo. Call a friend who makes you feel muy bien. Get in el cuadrilátero. Get in the ring. You want to be published? Write and submit. Write more. Submit more. Want to speak at a conference or on air? Submit a proposal. Keep pitching. You want a book deal? You got to write the book or the proposal. Wish you had a column? Make contacts, and in the meantime, write the column on your blog. Gather friends and read your work at a cafe. Don't wait for a hand-engraved wrestling Speedo. Make your own opportunities. Take off your mask. In 2008, I deemed Ann's Rants a humor blog. Today, I'm Mexican wrestling about creativity. En español. If I only write funny on my blog for every single post, it really screws my flying centón. So occasionally I shimmy out of the humor mask. I wear only la cabellera, just my hair. If you write a fashion blog, I hope you give away a sweatsuit on occasion. If you write a cooking blog, I hope you also photograph Taco Bell night. If you write a happiness blog, I hope you have a toll-free number and a safety plan. Take off the mask. We want to see your face. Own it. I had to go into therapy for this one. Why can't I blog like a normal person? Why do I have to take everything national? My ambition caused me shame. I just knew that for me, blogging didn't fit the for fun or hobby checkboxes. My therapist said, that's because for you, this is professional, you're building a career. Sure, my inner critic said, ha, career. Ha, if you're talented enough. Ha, if you ever make any money. But my therapist's words rang true, and my soul nodded, sí, señora. I started owning my creative ambition and found other people proudly wearing theirs as sequined capes. Then I started a show and, well, took it national. One move at a time. You too can perfect both La Rana, the frog, and La Jaula, the cage, but one at a time. Pick one or two goals and devote yourself. Announce them out loud and to your trusted people. Then become el rudo, a brute. Say no relentlessly. The moment you own your dream and name it, the universe will taunt you with that Barbie styling head you wanted for Hanukkah in 1980. You want to write for our awesome site you would have killed to write for up until this exact moment? Here's a job opening for a position you wanted 6 months ago. It will happen, and it will test your resolve, and nothing feels more satisfying than prioritizing yourself and your own battle over everything else for the very first time. Establish the rules, define your goal and how you get there. Create benchmarks so you can see yourself progressing. I don't recommend elusive goals like become popular or get discovered, because they make passive, waiting, hoping goals. Make them active by defining what popularity means to you. A certain number of followers, a killer resume, evenly feathered hair. Then outline your steps to getting there. Find your capitan. Find a mentor, a writing group, your trusted people, parejas increíbles, incredible pairings, heels teaming up with faces. Surround yourself with other professionals who challenge you to grow while supporting you along your path. Sometimes a guide emerges after you make your goal known. Other times you hire a coach and pay them for their consultation. Yes, you deserve it. Your blog and social media are sus amigos, your friends, not el jefe, the boss. For 99.99999% of us, the blog will never bring fame, nor especially not fortune. As soon as you view your online presence as a friend or tool toward a greater goal rather than the goal itself, you can stop obsessing over how many people read and follow you, how many comments you get, who retweets you and who doesn't. Put all that wasted energy back towards your goal, the fight, la lucha. Make a list of why you keep your presence online to remind yourself when you tire of the battle, because you will tire of the battle. Rest and wash your uniform. Read books on real paper. Exercise that chair butt beyond the swivel. Make room in your head. Reintroduce yourself to your family members. Actively seek inspiration, artistic, spiritual, edible, whatever works for you. Breathe and trust. Patience can feel like El Tornillo, a flying cross-body press with a full screw twist around the axis. Trust that process, that your journey is unfolding as it should, and you have the information you need for today. If you don't know what your goal is, do your work and trust the answer to reveal itself. Patience makes the true lucha libre for me, the free fight. Because when I let go of impatience, I feel free. But I also need to keep fighting for my creativity to feel free. Some people are born into extended wrestling families. Some people are born to contribute creativity. Own it, use it. Whatever you do, don't skimp on your mask designer. Muchas gracias.
Shannon Bradley Colery began blogging because she wanted to hear something other than the voices in her own head playing Pinnacle at 3 a.m. Shannon's favorite thing in the world is eating Mallomars dipped in oak-barreled Chardonnay while her daughters watch Modern Family as her husband tosses frozen grapes into her mouth. She is also fond of tetherball. Shannon would like to share with you what she's learned about sex now that she's in her 40s.
Thank you. This is very serious information. You should be taking notes. Here's what I know about sex now that I'm in my 40s. If you gain weight, some of it will go to your boobs. That's good. After 40, it isn't just your ears or your nose that continue to grow and become bigger. Some of your lady bits will get bigger too. Last month, 5 mariachi singers ran to the table where my husband and I were dining, tripped, fell, and were never seen again. I think they fell into my vagina. I can't be entirely sure because I didn't feel anything. But sometimes in the shower, I hear the faint echo of Guantanamera. Somewhat disconcerting. In your 40s, you will take your orgasms however you can get them. Let's face it, people are very competitive about their orgasms, like they're climbing Mount Everest. Did you summit? Or did you only get to base camp? Did you need an oxygen tank or a Sherpa, grappling hooks? Or were you able to summit barefoot, reading holy Sanskrits in nirvanic bliss? My orgasms have always been like calculus. I have to stand on the big toe of my left foot, hips cantilevered toward Mecca, singing peyote-induced incantations over a burning sagebush while doves are released north by northwest into the aurora borealis. I mean, fuck that. You know, these days, I just don't care about my orgasms. If I have them, great. If I don't, I've got nothing left to prove, people. After 40, sex is no longer risky and may, in fact, prolong your life. Unless we're Susan Sarandon or on a hormone cocktail, we are not going to become teen mothers. And we're more likely to die from heart arrhythmia than from STDs. And so at our age, sex pencils out cost-effective, boosts immunities, it actually can cure cancer. Don't tell anyone that I told you that. And for those of us who are religious and having sex out of wedlock, we really don't care if we burn in the everlasting fires of hell. We are just thanking God that we're still getting laid. In your 40s, you should try something new occasionally just to spice things up, like maybe having sex in the back of your minivan at 11 p.m. on a Monday night on Beverly Drive. Not that Henry and I did that, but if hypothetically we did do that, the policeman who shined his mag light into the cargo hold, you know, would just see two middle-aged people so thrilled to be busted for lewd and lascivious behavior that he would not even bother. You know, I mean, do you really want to bust people who need hair plugs and a bite guard? At our age, there's no need to be threatened by fantasies. If you're having sex in your 40s, it might be with someone you've known for quite some time, someone who loves you, even though maybe he saw you nursing your newborn on the toilet because you were trying to delicately deliver your first postpartum poop. And it may be someone you love, even though he leaves his poop in the toilet because he's so proud of it. So if from time to time, in your mind, you're making love to Chris Hemsworth with his Thor's hammer, or your partner just happens to mention that Sofia Vergara broke up with her boyfriend as he's unclasping your bra strap, you won't take it personally. After 40, sex is funny. When I was younger, sex was very serious business. It was very Melrose Place, you know, with intense gazes and catatonic Andrew Shue repartee. Sydney, I want you. I want you so bad. But I'm troubled by my own beauty. God forbid that you made a sexual faux pas. Hairy armpits, big graying underwear, some ill-timed vaginal flatulence. That never happened to me, but I've heard that it exists. So last month, when Henry rolled me powerfully beneath him, we both fell off the bed, and I may walk the rest of my life with a limp, but after we stopped laughing, we made love on the floor. So finally, in your 40s, it's a good idea to go to bed naked if you want to get lucky. Because now you have arthritis, carpal tunnel syndrome, cauliflower ear, and phlebitis. You cannot possibly expect to be able to shuck your pajamas from a horizontal position. And, you know, let's not forget about the entropy of our lives. Henry and I have been together 15 years. We have 2 daughters we have to keep off the stripper pole, 2 cats that might eat us if we nap too deeply, and a 10-year-old minivan that smells like Jimmy Hoffa's corpse. When we get into bed at night, we just want to sleep, and if we're not sleeping, we really want to watch younger, hotter people having sex on Game of Thrones. Yeah, or TMZ cellulite, celebrity cellulite. So when the marriage maintenance egg timer goes off, we get into bed without the expectation of sex, but with the mandate of a massage. Then things evolve. This man who piqued my curiosity and passion 15 years ago has his hands on my body. And suddenly, this body that has had children and age-related ailments takes on dimension. Henry's hands follow the curves. Suddenly, I've got thighs and hips and belly and breasts. Some places are softer than I'd like them to be, but some are still firm and wholly human and corporeal for this short time that I have on planet Earth. And for that time, regardless of age or in and out of shapeness, I re-inhabit my body. I'm reminded that I exist, and this is sexy.
Kelly Wickham. She's a blogger, an assistant principal at a middle school, and a fearless writer of manifestos. She is also a champion of girls. When she grows up, she wants to change the world with her words, and yet be a chorus voice of other girls and women who are doing the same. She's inspired by other women who tell their truth and who own their narrative, however shady or awful their past may be, so that they may fully complete themselves as women, but also as women who take their rightful place as world citizens, and she refuses to take no for an answer. She loves the shit out of her past mistakes. She also loves the shit out of her children, her close family, her friends who give her life, and the Cuban, and I love the shit out of her. Kelly implores you to demand the supply.
You guys want to photobomb me? Are you smiling yet? Oh, I see you. You're in the aisle. Ready? Go. There are a few overt things my mother taught me when I was a child that I can recall with such clarity. She sometimes cannot believe it when I repeat it back to her. I've never felt like I was smart. And my older sister got all the physical compliments when we were younger, and we are merely 14 months apart, enough to look like twins when we were younger, as neither of us outgrew the other one by a wide margin. I say this to point out that if you have nearly identical sized children and one of them gets all the compliments of, "She is so pretty," and "Isn't she beautiful?" and the other one doesn't, then the other one grows up insecure and full of doubt. I don't blame my sister, and I'm not jealous of her to this day. But it was hard to be raised with her. When she was born, my parents had friends who also gave birth around the same time. And when the couples decided to get together with their babies and introduce them to one another, my sister lit up the room. I'm not bragging here because the bragging rights don't belong to me. But Erin was stunning and gorgeous as a baby. Big brown eyes and large curly locks and caramel skin. The other couple's baby that came to meet them were insanely jealous because, as my mother has told in stories, their baby looked like Mr. Magoo. Those parents never spoke to mine again, and my mom was convinced, as terrible as this sounds, that it was because they felt inferior or bad about having an uglier baby. I grew up with a beautiful sister. I could totally relate to those parents. When it came to raising me, my mom was fairly common sense with her parenting, but I stripped a lot of that away from her by getting pregnant too soon at 14 with my daughter Mallory. She may deny it, but she's probably still a little angry with me about that. The lessons she taught me helped me add a protective layer to my skin. And I didn't realize that I needed any of that until I was out on my own with a 3-year-old in a small college town. It was, to say the least, a financially crushing time. It was filled with lessons from poverty that even to this day fill me with dread and stomach-sinking realities of being poor. Poverty has long-lasting effects like that. And I first experienced this when I got my first paycheck as a teacher and had to go to the grocery store and buy groceries with my own money. It was weird and shameful, and I could not put my finger on these new conflicted feelings. In college, Mallory and I were on welfare and got food stamps. And I found Section 8 housing for us, but paying for electricity was still a problem. I learned to just call them and tell them that I wouldn't have money until such and such a date, and could they please let me have light and heat in the meantime? One time, though, I sent them a check on time, and by on time, I mean I talked to someone who said that if I got the check there by Friday, it would be okay. But then Friday afternoon came, and I picked up Mallory from daycare and came home to a dark apartment. I called them and asked them if they got my check, and they had. But they wouldn't turn my electricity back on until next week. That's when I picked up Mallory, put her in our clunker of a car, and headed down to their office, where I took a number and waited for my name to be called. When I got up there in the front of the line, I had Mallory on my hip, hoping that seeing a single mother with a baby would sway her to let me have some heat and light for the weekend. I paid, and it was late, but it got there on the date that we agreed on. The company sent someone to turn off my electricity, and it was only 1 in the afternoon. Surely they could send that person back out, and they could fix this for me so that I didn't have to go through the whole weekend without it. She said, no, we'll schedule someone for Monday, sometime. Through all my frustration and rage that was boiling beneath my skin, I started becoming flustered and wondered if I was going to turn into that screaming woman in a public place. You know what I'm talking about. And then I remembered this phrase that my mother taught me. That is unacceptable. Mom said that if you use that phrase and you stop talking, inevitably the other person would have to fill the silence with stammering and excuses and bullshit. And she was right. I said it and then promptly shut my mouth and glared at her. I was a 19-year-old girl trying very hard to be a woman. It was entirely lost on me how systemic poverty worked, and that she and I were locked in this battle that she may have wanted to win, but I needed to win. I needed to win this one. Normally, I don't think of things in those terms of winners and losers, but she worked for a company who didn't feel like giving me something that I paid for, albeit late. And I was a girl woman living in poverty who needed to be able to keep her child warm and turn on the lights to do homework. Systemic poverty is unacceptable. It is a weapon we wield with careless abandon by ignoring the human faces behind it. This electric company worker couldn't help herself and kept filling the void with meaningless words, and I let her until she finally stammered out that she would call the guy to come back out and turn it on right now. Victory. I demanded the supply they had to offer, but something was still wrong. It wasn't the electric current that would soon be flowing to my home. Instead, it was a small slice of humanity that they denied me by brushing off my needs. I needed her or them to see my face when they were going to deny me and put me at the bottom of their list. Girls, ladies, Please practice and do this. When things are unacceptable, tell people. When systemic poverty or sexism or racism is at play, call that shit out. My women friends do this. They call it out. They're voicing their displeasure at what's offered, and then they are refusing to take it. It takes a lot of practice, and it begins the first time we use our voice and teach people how to treat us. It begins with a human face and human interaction and questioning authority when it makes no damn sense. It begins with a demand, sometimes a very small one. The supply is out there, I have learned, and it's for the taking. It's just that the takers seem to always possess more entitlement than I. At least it did, until I learned to try the supply out for myself, and even in cases when I needed to get electricity. It builds and it grows, and that is precisely how we grow in confidence and become women who demand other things and increase expectations. We're doing it right now for our daughters, and this is not easy work. It is grueling and filled with opposition, but it is necessary work. It's work that makes me feel smart and forget about wanting to be pretty. It is, I have come to accept, my life's work. You have permission to demand. Do it with abandon. Let somebody else fill the void with blathering nonsense and bullshit. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I demand that y'all give it up. Supply me some applause. I would love for all the readers to come back up on stage. All the readers, give it up for these amazing women. Woo! Come on back out and take a bow. Wonderful. And all of our voices of the year, come on back out.